Hello everybody, my name is Lislas and welcome back to Five Nights at Frickbear's 3. I guess welcome back. I mean, it's not really welcome back because this is the first video about it, whatever. But to be 100% clear, this is only background footage for like the introduction to my channel. This is not gonna become a series or anything. This is not the type of content I want to make. Unless of course I become a drama sloptober, in which case like fingers crossed on that one. That it doesn't happen, of course, of course. So what am I about? Great question, actually. Well, why don't I tell you? My name is Leslas. It's basically just my name plus some random assortment of letters that really don't mean anything or just mean something random like Jack's Epic Eye or Markiplier or MyCrack. I'm quite young and I speak Spanish, though it probably won't be important outside of a couple of screenshots where something might be in Spanish. Pero no quiero hacer una cuenta de Google con el idioma en inglés solo para que otros puedan entender la información necesaria en una imagen que aparece por 2 segundos. So yeah. I have questionable taste in women, apparently. I have something you could probably classify in more medical terms, since I'm not quite sure what it is yet, but I can tell there's something. And I'm very dumb. As proven by that. So let's. I'll mostly make videos on games, shows, and movies that I feel like talking about, or that I feel like I have something interesting to say about. I'm trying to look at different pieces of media through a certain angle to reach a bigger point. Maybe I'm not doing a good job at it, but I will try to lean into that a little bit more in my later videos. In terms of, well, pretty much anything. I prefer animation, fantasy, and sci-fi, as well as an even mix of drama, comedy, and action, so that neither aspect gets too annoying or overbearing for me. Though at a certain point I can watch anything that isn't a completely disposable waste of time or something so tried and overplayed it becomes unwatchable. What I prefer to talk about more specifically are flawed pieces of media that have the potential to be much better than they are. I'll usually not go into too much detail or make dedicated videos about things that are either amazing or complete ass unless I use them as an example for something, but in general I prefer to talk about things that are in a 8 to a 2 out of 10 ranking wise, just so I can do another thing I really like. Fixing the problems. And specifically, I'm talking about making aspects of the narrative work better with the rest of the story or just at all. For a bad character or entire narrative in a single sentence or a dozen minutes, you can rest assured I will try to understand what something is trying to do, see how it came to be, argue why it doesn't work, and try to fix it. You could almost say this entire channel is just an excuse to do that, and that this is the only thing in the entire process I'm actually significantly passionate about, because it sure as hell isn't the recording or the editing, I'll tell you that much. Which leads to... I like fast cuts to have the footage that I'm showing on screen reflect at least loosely what I'm talking about, and while I hate editing it like that, I just prefer my videos to look that way, and it's still much more fun than recording it. Because try as I might to talk without a script, I can't. So all the videos I make are pretty much 99% pre-recorded, with maybe a few changes from script to final product, either by a wording mistake that didn't really make any difference or something that sounded better in the moment, and God knows I would prefer not to do another record session. Elaborate bits and one-off tangents are also things I like to sprinkle in, so you might see them from time to time, as well as jokes exclusive to the editing and the text. Lots and lots and lots of text to either fix mistakes I make, add jokes, or just add more context without breaking the flow of the video, or having to record anything else because fuck. I'll probably not make too many shorts. Most likely I'll either try to make a regular video or just cool off for a while if I feel like I need a break from it by doing literally anything else. Maybe I'll make a small statement through shorts, but usually if I don't need a couple of minutes to say what I want, then I don't feel like it's worth making that statement more often than not. The number of videos to shorts could maybe be similar, but my idea is that shorts will at least never number regular videos. Hopefully. Honestly, the biggest thing I want to do with YouTube is just take it as it goes and not force myself into making videos that I don't think are worth making. If I can be a bit personal for a while, I've always wanted to get a YouTube channel since I was little, so like 5 years ago, but over time the passion has definitely faded, especially with my newfound sense of meaninglessness that many YouTube videos elicit in me. Even disregarding the lack of large-scale importance that many of those videos already have simply by virtue of being reviews of a piece of entertainment, I definitely find watching a lot of them to be even more pointless, especially when watching multiple of these towards a single piece of media, since many of them just repeat the same talking points over and over again. And yes, sometimes these talking points can be different enough, and sometimes they can even lead to actually interesting discussions, but let's be honest, 99% of the time, that's not what happens. And even when a conversation or conflicting idea does happen, it can be just as pointless. I'll give you an example, alright? Once upon a time, I watched Carry On, and I thought it was pretty bad. It was just about the same as any other generic action heavy flick against some bad guys I could think of. Maybe it had a few less plot holes than average, the characters weren't all complete idiots all the time, and it wasn't as afraid of killing characters, as pointless and underdeveloped as they may be, but outside of the DreamWorks logo at the beginning of this generic live action flick, giving me a bit of whiplash, I did not care at all for this movie. A good while later, Shea Fearless, you probably know him, made a video about the top 10 Netflix original movies. And at first I just wanted to get an in-depth video discussing this interesting phenomena, since that topic did come up when I saw reviews on the movies Damsel, K-pop Demon Hunters, and Red Notice, so I was a bit curious. And what do you know? There were other 3 movies that I had watched who were in the top 10 and weren't even culturally relevant enough for me to find out about their ranking through reviews, those being The Gray Man, Back in Action, and Carry On. And I wasn't too surprised. I thought for a bit that maybe Carry On taking place in an airport was a bit too quote-unquote gimmicky for the normies, but my family clearly didn't, so you know what, it all tracked. I watched the video for a while. He said all of them were either terrible, forgettable, disposable, or multiple of those things, as I expected. Some interesting history came up that I didn't know about, and then I reached the part where he talked about Carry On and thought it was good. Now, this was quite a shock to me, since I saw that movie, and how it clearly wasn't all that. Sure, I could see why he would prefer it over The Gray Man or other garbage from that same dumpster, but good was definitely overreacting. And you know what, maybe that could have led to something. Maybe I could have rewatched that movie and started a deep introspection about my opinion on action flicks and how I may undervalue them simply for being in a category I don't like. But I just thought, what's the point in that? Like, I already don't watch a lot of things that I actually want to or procrastinate finishing them simply because I'm in a constant loop of trying to work on something meaningful and bumbling about on social media such as YouTube or Reddit. But even then, I just didn't feel like it was an introspection worth having, and that any time dedicated to it would be best spent doing literally anything else. Even in the not at all guaranteed scenario, it actually changed my opinion and didn't just still think it was a bad movie in spite of Chef's opinions. Of course, this is not to diss or give any shade to Chef's opinions or his video or any reviewers in general. Hell, there's a reason I basically want to become one of them. They can have a lot of personality, entertainment value, and meaningful insight that can make them just as much of a piece of media as the things they are reviewing. That video was an interesting conversation for an entirely different reason than my opinion in the quality of one of those movies. But I just feel like sometimes I can watch Hell of a Boss by itself and think about it and keep up with what happens to pretty accurately realize why it's success without any outside influence and try and maybe even think of a way to fix it. I'd rather just cut the middleman entirely and go straight to the interesting conversation with a lot more nuance and personality and just a checklist of problems that might lead to the former. The point of all this is that, despite being something I made like 3 weeks ago as a complete amateur and not being bad necessarily, I don't really look at my Game Overs video too fondly. It's just another checklist of problems with very sparse specks of personality, funny moments, or full-blown creativity. Plus the generic, I could have worded that in a better way or expanded upon it more thing that happens when you make something, such as important concepts not being introduced in a pilot only really being a big deal because it is already rushing to set up a status quo that kind of need those important details, and Goebbels' gimmick that he has common sense naturally leading to making everyone else a lobotomized idiot, much like it was when she was paired with Goebbels, but I digress. 2 videos I've been working on outside of this one, which is to procrastinate on because I am, in fact, a lazy bum, have been delayed either by a gigantic misconception that requires a full reworking of the script and a much deeper complexity on the topic that I first thought respectively, on top of many other things such as the vicious cycle, my interest in improving a drawing, going to the gym, and being a lazy bum. But you know what? If I don't think it's worth talking about, I won't. And it'll only be a waste of time if I didn't learn anything from it. If I even can, you know, maybe I'll just slam my desk after having to can the Dark Pulse video because I thought it was a parody of mascot horror when in reality it is just that stupid. Like someone else I know. Frankly, I just think doing these videos are an easy and simple way to stretch my creative muscles a little outside of the confines of my own mind. because God knows my brain needs to stretch itself quite a bit. Maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't, but I'll try to make at least a few things I think are worth watching. With that said, I've been Lysilas, that was my channel introduction video, and that's about it. So yeah, goodbye.